The first contact with the police department grew out of MOVE members and some kind of display of arms.
No. See, I'm trying. I know you're lost. Listen, we had over 300. Let me see, not over 300. I think we had I think it was about 100 and I think maybe about 150 arrests, maybe even more than that, for misdemeanors. I mean, and contempt of court. We were so engulfed by the criminal justice system that they were giving us something like $50,000 bail for disorderly conduct.
Okay, so most of the arrests up until that point, most of the conflict with the city was misdemeanors growing out of simple types of violations, such as, name a few.
Well, in other words, here's what happened. When MOVE first surfaced as an above-ground chapter, we would work with people in the community. We had a program where guys would come to us from the prisons and say, man, we need your expertise to help us get off drugs and, and to live a hard-working existence. They trusted us. What we did was we took brooms and shovels and broke away from our own car wash and left our own families to work with these brothers and sisters. We would say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to show you how to clean up your own neighborhood. At the same time, let the people know that whose houses you had once broke in and robbed and stole their material things to buy your drugs. You understand what I'm saying? Let these people know that you are truly, sincerely trying to make an effort to correct yourself. Plus, it kept them busy. When this thing started catching on, I mean, at one point we had almost 200 people. And we found ourselves engulfed in this more so than our own activities. But what happened was the city started sending the police around and harassing us and intimidating us because we would go from door to door asking for donations. It didn't matter whether they gave it to us or not. But we needed money to buy the plastic bags and the brooms and all that. But we would clean in the streets for them, and they loved it. This was up in Germantown. Now, we went and met with, I think his name was August Salvatore Saletti or something like that. He was a representative for the city, and I think the redevelopment authority or something like that. We had written up a proposal. We asked them to give us a small stipend so that we could feed these people, and brooms and shovels, and we would clean up the lots, all of the lots and alleyways in West Philadelphia. Okay. So what we did was we approached the city and said, listen, and I want you to understand, these were drug addicts, hardcore drug addicts, people that were just disorientated, okay? We took them and taught them skills like carpentry and housing remodel. We would we did work on drug rehabilitation centers and all that. But again, we went to the city with a proposal and asked them for some minor funding so that we could facilitate these programs. And they completely rejected us. Not only that, from then on out, everywhere we went, the police started harassing us for cleaning the streets, for free. Now, obviously, we could not subject these people that were working with us. Some of them were ex-offenders and on parole and probation. They got scared. You know what I mean? So they stopped coming around, and ultimately we had to suspend them programs. Then we started locking up when they started harassing our women. We would go to court. We would go to court for a disorderly conduct charge and wind up getting 6 months or a year for contempt of court. They put us for it. But see, at that point, we pushed criminal justice system.
Okay.
A real good example in terms of how we were, and at this point, my other MOVE members have always questioned Donald Grassie's role in a lot of our situations, because at that time he was just a member that we were working with. He was never a co-founder of the organization. At times he would take notes in the organization, but all MOVE members did that. One of our very first cases in front of a Judge Margiotti, we were there for use of profanity demonstrating against Ted Kennedy at the Ben Franklin Hotel at 9th and Chestnut. Well, it was a minor thing, But all of a sudden, Donald Grassie jumps up and hollers, "Lock us up, lock us all up. take us to jail, you know, and we were all the rest of the members were stunned because that wasn't our strategy. We were trying to figure out where he was coming from, but we had always been taught to do things in unison. He got up and laid down on the floor and put his hands behind his back. And they handcuffed him, and then they started kicking him and beating him. But the rest of the MOVE members didn't respond. You know, they was locking us up and, you know, whipping us up. But what I'm saying is that we've always questioned, you know, where this came from. And not only that, when we got in prison, he would provoke the black Muslims. I mean, hardcore brothers from the Nation of Islam. I mean, I'm saying like they wasn't messing with nobody. They were similar like us. They stayed together. They worked together. You know, that was their doctrine at that time. This cat would go up and try to provoke a confrontation with them. You know, we kept saying, well, man, where is this guy coming from? But along with that, we're saying that obviously he turned out to be an informant for the government. I don't know if that wasn't his original role to begin with, you know, a provocateur or something like that. But all I'm saying is that individuals like him kept us in situations where it wasn't really necessary for us to, you know, we weren't trying to go that way then. So as a result of these court cases and insurmountable bails, we had to curtail a lot of our activities. Consequently, when they start killing the babies, we had. What do you mean killing? In other words, killing the baby? When our women were pregnant, we came home. We secured bail from the Superior Court. Justice Nixon and a few other people, you know, were more or less sympathetic to what was happening to us then. Knew that our rights were being violated, at least to the extent of the excessive bails. They would grant us bail, and we would, you know, muster the money up together, and often we would get out of jail at 1, 2, 3 o'clock at night. Something that is rarely done in a lot of places. They usually wait till, you know, the beginning of the morning or the afternoon. But 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. In this particular instance, I mean, it happens in Philadelphia. It's not unusual, but like I said, in some prisons they just won't let you travel like that. But we came home around 1 o'clock in the morning, and no sooner as we pulled up to the house, it must have been 10, 15 cop cars, squad cars, all eased right on up into the community, and they just started rumbling. You know, they beat my sister's baby, Janine. She had a little infant. He struck him across the head or something like that. He died. There were other circumstances where Rhonda and other MOVE members were the very case that I was tried for aggravated assault, where they said they would have a meticulous way of demanding that all MOVE members come to court, okay, on a certain day, and they would always wind up continuing the cases, but after they have achieved an altercation, you see, and like I said, the day that we went to court for sentencing. They jumped on us, beat us, and killed Rhonda's baby. I mean, you know, Rhonda was there. Her case, this is in front of Judge Blake, who is a key role in this here, also in the judiciary. That's what I meant when I said this thing is extremely involving. Rhonda, at that time, Valerie and another MOVE member were brought down, along with 11 other MOVE members who were there for sentencing, but they were just there for just a continuation. But Rhonda was pregnant. They disposed of the matter between Ron and them, then they began sentencing us. Well, words were passed, and like I said, the sheriffs were removing us from the courtroom. We were there to go to jail. We knew we were going to get sentenced anyway. And they start jumping on us out in the hallway. The whole courtroom emptied out into the hallway to find out what had happened. And, you know, things had subsided. Then all of a sudden, this black sheriff just took a blackjack out and started wailing on one of the members. So we all rushed to his aid, was pulling the guy off of him, and then he started, you know, bombarding us, and it was a fisticuff thing, right? But clearly the sheriffs were taking advantage of the situation. While Rhonda and Valerie were off to the side, shouting, screaming, but they weren't participating. They dragged her, beat her up, and subsequently she lost her baby as a result of that. Well, you know, and I mean, it had gotten so critical that every MOVE woman that had a baby, you know, that showed that they were pregnant, were ultimately losing their babies as a result of being harassed or beaten or suffer, you know, forced to suffer some situations at the hands of the administration. My sister Alberta, this is the most ugliest thing that you ever want to see in your life. I was on a 60-day hunger strike and her and another MOVE member sat outside the then Philadelphia General as a vigil. They slept on the grass because they were concerned about me, dying or being beaten up. And they waited all night long until the following morning, just before the news cameras came, to lock them up, knowing that we were going to be demonstrating anyway, okay? They took her down 8th and Race. She told them that she was pregnant. Be mindful how you handle her. They opened her, the two matrons held her legs, and the two guys held her arms, and the matron repeatedly kicked her in the vagina until she hemorrhaged. And she lost her baby. I mean, this is documented. So
Karen, just a matter
and they didn't kick babies out their stomachs.
Tell us about it.
They didn't kick babies out their stomach. They had this one CD back in around the first confrontation. He had took Rhonda Africa and threw her beside a fence, belly first. Her stomach was sticking way out when he did it. So see, people got to understand that their thing is to kill off move. The system.
In '76, I believe there was an incident where another MOVE baby was killed. Would you tell us about that?
You talking about Janine's baby?
Yeah, Life After.
Yeah, her baby they crushed her baby's head.
How did
They were beating up her husband, and she went to the aid of her husband. Her baby was knocked out her arm, and the head was stomped on the curb.
Do you think?
Why all of the events leading up until the May 20th confrontation, MOVE people were sick and tired of the abuse and the harassment under the Rizzo administration. Not only the beatings and the jailings, but the failure to the courts or anybody to respond to the situation. We just wanted to be left alone. We will never back down from a fight. So what you had in November of '76, when we lost the last baby that I just mentioned with Rhonda and the sheriffs, that was it.
Met the MOVE organization because some of the members I knew anyway, from being out in the street in the movement before the MOVE organization started. From my perspective, at least I thought they started in 1971 from my perspective, but they could have been started before then. The MOVE organization at that time was an organization basically, just like Jamal had stated, was an organization that really was was all about like natural things. They ate natural. They lived natural. They wasn't dependent on electricity and gas and those type of things. They could survive without those things. And it's a blessing that they did. They was about speaking the truth about what was going on with the system, like the front. The system is corrupt. We all know that. They didn't back down from the system. Where a lot of people, talked about the system, and when the police and the FBI and everybody confront them, they said another story. With the MOVE organization, they was about whatever they said, they was about that. Like I said, I knew a lot of the members. We used to go to their rallies. They used to come to our rallies, because at one time I was a member of the Black United Liberation Front, which was an offshoot of the Black Panther Party. When the Black Panther Party broke up, here in Philadelphia anyway, we started the Black United Liberation Front. And during that period of time, we had a good relationship with the MOVE organization. What I saw from them just talking to people in the community, they had a car wash. They washed our cars and everybody else's cars. That's how they made money for themselves, because they had homes on 33rd and Poughton. They had homes all over West Philadelphia. People at that point loved them here. They didn't have no problems here whatsoever with nobody.
When did their problem really begin? How did they?
Their problem began, from what I can see, is when Frank Rizzo and his people decided that they was a problem. The MOVE organization had a demonstration one time at the Philadelphia Zoo here, and they was against the caging and the slavery and the lockup of animals, and they demonstrated against that. And Rizzo and people were like that, was outraged about that. Like I said, the MOVE organization at first was black and white. Hispanic. Now you can see that they're all black organization.
How did it become an all-black organization?
Basically, from what I can see, is the pressure from the system, the murder of their children, the beating of the men and women, the illegal incarceration of the MOVE members. I think what happened was that a lot of the white people, you know, just got out of it, and a few Hispanics that was in it just got out of it. Other than some of them that's in jail right now, right? So you know, what I saw the change in the MOVE organization and their attitude was when they was beat consistently.
What precipitated those beatings?
What precipitated the beatings was the police, Frank Rizzo.
But why? I mean, they didn't all black people. I mean, why did they pick on them?
Well, they didn't only pick on MOVE. They stripped the Black Panther Party naked in the street. They beat up on RAM. They beat up on our organization, the Black United Liberation Front. They beat up on Frank Rizzo and his people, attacked any organization that was in this city that challenged him. That was either electoral politics or outright police brutality and murder. So the MOVE organization at that time wasn't an organization that was just picked out to be attacked. They was against the way that Frank Rizzo ran this city, and they was attacked for that. They was attacked in the courtrooms, railroaded in the courtrooms, where the judges outright just railroaded them, did anything they want to them, handcuffed them in the courtroom, allowed the sheriff to beat them in the courtroom, beat their women, beat their children.
What were they brought to court for?
Well, they was brought to court for speaking up for their rights. I mean, basically nothing. I mean, actually, the MOVE organization actually never was arrested for anything that I classify as legal.
Let me show you something. The case that we went to appear for sentencing was the last MOVE case that we had in City Hall. You understand what I'm saying? We had no more cases to come down there for. And they just would not let us get out of there without, you know what I mean, without creating another case. I mean, this was the last case. We told them, you know, this is it. You know, it was a 30-day contempt sentence. Instead, they jumped on us, beat us, killed the baby, and I wound up getting 6 years. You see, so, I mean, they deliberately would keep this thing going and blame us for it. So obviously, when they charged us with the assaults, MOVE members who got out on bail and stuff like that, just, you know, I was in jail at that time. Well, no, I got out on bail, and this was in November. If you remember, November 76 into December 77, January 77 was I guess one of the harshest winters the Eastern Coast had experienced. We had to go up to upstate New York and help some, you know, we did a lot of moving around. We had families in Virginia and stuff like that. They had a lot of relocating to do. Subsequently, when I came back for trial, you know, I made it clear at that time that we had upstate interests. My brother, you know, I have documentation to show them that we, you know, in fact we had chapters in, you know, upstate New York and New York City and Virginia and other areas, right? I say that to say this because they claimed for 3 years from 78 to 81 they didn't know we were in New York. That's all I'm saying. And I can show you notes of testimony, clearly show you that, you know, we testified in open court that we were in upstate New York. But we were, after seeing what they did in August 5th and then August 8th, we weren't about to just call them and say, hey, you know, this is where we're at. But we weren't running from them. That's the point that we're making. What happened was, we went on trial. Like I said, I was tried at abstention and beaten up and all that. And my brothers and sisters took the necessary precautions to stage this confrontation to once and for all, to get the city of Philadelphia off our back, to bring the kind of necessary exposure to us as political prisoners, and resolve this thing peacefully.
Okay, now you're talking about the platform with the gun.
Right.
Okay, just briefly give us a little bit, since that's the first elevation, major, and which led to kind of an image of MOVE as being a violent.
Okay, see, here again, the authorities knew we weren't violent. Definitely not aggressive. If that, see, you know, obviously that confrontation was staged to extract the most out of the situation. All right, the guns and the weapon, they were for real. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from MOVE members. Here's another thing you got to understand. We had heard that the mafia, people had been coming by talking about the mafia was going to do Rizzo a favor and try to take us out. We also had some altercations with some other groups that were threatening to deal with us. So the guns and the weapons was more or less like a suggestion to them. Listen, it wasn't just for the city. This, unlike what a lot of people think, but the city was in fact harassing us also. Cops were coming by shooting at a house. And when I mean shooting. They wouldn't shoot their service revolvers. They would shoot 22s and 25s at 2 o'clock in the morning. All right, we tried to get the city to stop it, they just would not do it, so we had to bear arms. Now, the confrontation on May 20th, once my brothers and sisters took their platform, they remained in that posture. The purpose of that was, again, to bring the focus on the city to resolve this thing peacefully. There was no reason why the August 8th thing came about. We did not precipitate that. Like I said, it was more justification for gunplay on May 20th than it was on August 8th. On August 8th, the issue was the fact that they remained in the house. On May 20th, the issue was the fact that they were in the house with guns. Okay? And this is where people lose focus on. The events, obviously, that occurred during the whole siege that was known to everybody, so there's no sense in me repeating myself on those.
Okay.
The agreement that was struck very easily with the city of Philadelphia because there in fact was no major violations of law, felony violations by MOVE members over the course of the years. You see? So they were in a position to grant the amnesty or whatever that, the way you want to talk about it. They were in a position to grant that. We had agreed to, comply with certain elements of the pact in terms of removing the animals, fixing the house up, and for the most part, most MOVE members were going to relocate anyway because we had very serious business to deal with. So it was just a skeleton crew, maybe 2-3 people that have been just left to hand out literature and stuff like that, and answer people's questions. They didn't want the house to remain because of it was symbolic. You see, but here again, that was just a fallacy because it wasn't the house, it was MOVE. See, they wanted to kill us. They didn't want to kill the house because we could always go to another. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They could see, and this is what gets lost in the application of what they do as opposed to what they say. And even right now, it wasn't that house. It wasn't that house. It was us. And I mean, as we go along further down, I'll show you. Even right now, the mayor is setting the framework for dealing with me and other members who are still active and still communicating by saying that he fears retaliation and retribution. I mean, first of all, any government...
This is a deep story here because it's almost never been told. We all know it though. Now, what happened was that MOVE had thousands of people supporting them. Some of us, all of us was part of it. We used to bring food down there every day, water.
Why did you bring food? What do you mean you used to bring food?
Well, it was in a barricade. See, the police barricaded the area, like in a 3 blocks radius all the way around. Would allow nobody in.
But give us some history on that. How did that come about, a barricade?
Okay, how the barricade came about was that MOVE was in their home, telling people over their loudspeaker, just like they was doing on Osage Avenue, of the injustices that was happening to them. They had people in their organization, Robert Africa, and some of the others I can't name, who was no, not Chucky. They was falsely arrested. Right? They was falsely arrested. They send them, they had them in Holmesburg Prison, Detention Center, House of Correction, Gratis, places like that. All across the state, they locked them up for illegal charges and had them all in jail. The MOVE people demanded, just like they demanded this time, that these people be released. And because of the community support, right? Rizzo and them saw that if the community kept supporting them the way they was, then they would be showed in the world how mad and crazy that they really were.
What do you mean community support?
What I'm saying is, man, that people from all over the community, at that time, all the politicians, black, all the community organizations, just people loved them, man. I'm telling you the truth. People, actually babies, will come from all over the city, out of the city, bring them food and clothing, everything, because see, they was on their porch telling the people what was going on, right? If they venture out in their community anywhere, they would be arrested, beaten. So they had to basically stay inside. And what they was trying to do is trying to let the public understand that they had people in jail that was being beaten in jail, falsely arrested. And so this got to so much of a height that the city, the first time again in history, made agreement with them that they will let these people out of jail if they will move out of Philadelphia. They let them all out of jail. Never happened before in the history of this world that I know of.
The city
government,
so much public support,
right?
And the demonstration, the city agreed.
Let them out.
Their members.
They didn't agree. They didn't agree. They let them out. I saw them. I talked to them.
They let them out.
They let them out. They let them out. And then the agreement was that they would move out of the city. So Move agreed. They had agreement from the Quakers in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. They had some agreement with some other white folks in Jersey that once their people get out, they will give them this land so that they can move, right, on this land and stop this confrontation that was brewing, that everybody knew was happening, because everybody knew that Rizzo was crazy. And the only thing that kept Rizzo from sending the army and the police and everybody in there was the community support. Because there was so many people from all around supporting the Move organization. So once they got their people out of jail, the Quakers reneged on the land. The people in Jersey reneged on the land. They wouldn't give them the land. So they couldn't move. So then Rizzo and his people, Ed Rendell, the district attorney, the FBI was involved, the United States Firearm and Tobacco Agency was involved, the CIA was involved, the Civil Affairs Unit here was involved. You know, every agency that you can think. License inspection was involved, the gas company was involved, the electric company was involved, the water company was involved. All these people was involved in this negotiation because they cut off all their services, right? So once they found out that all the land was locked up and they couldn't get it, which I believe personally, and I can't prove it, but personally I believe that Frank Rizzo threatened these people, or some of his people, not to get them the land, because in reality they didn't want them to move.
No.
They wanted to get them.
In other words, you're saying the Quakers and other people who had promised land, you believe that the city, state administrations sabotage.
Or the FOP, was that the Fraternal Order Police?
And so the Move people then were forced to remain here.
They were forced to remain here. And since they were forced to remain here, right, then Rizzo and them gave him a deadline to give up. Not to leave now, to give up. Right? Refused to give up for what?
So all of the members that had been released from jail was now in the Move headquarters?
Oh no. They was in the community.
So who essentially were the people in the Move headquarters?
Essentially was the people in the Move headquarters: Delbert, Phil, Chucky, Sue Africa, a lot of the sisters. There was a number of them. There was a number of them. And so what happened was, while the city is still trying to now tell them to give up, since they ain't got no land to go to, right? The city immediately put a warrant on everybody that they let go. They had all these outstanding warrants.
So they're going to rearrest them? Or?
Well, the warrant said dead or alive. This is the truth. The warrant said dead or alive. They wanted these people. They didn't care how they brought them in. I mean, it's public records. You go down to the city, check it out. Their public records stated that now they want them dead or alive. Everybody that they let go, because now they said Move broke the contract. Since Move couldn't get out of the city, Rizzo and them said now they broke the contract. So now they want to arrest everybody again.
Dead, want them dead or alive?
Dead or alive. Now they want everybody, since they broke the contract and they wasn't out a certain time, that not only they broke the contract, now they want them to give up. Not get out of town no more, just to give up. And you know, like the police used to get on, the police had loudspeakers, right? And they used to call Move all kind of names, throw firecrackers all in their yard. See, because the police had blockaded the area, and they was exactly right across the street from Move, and all around them. They would look like you can see this room right here. Like I'm right here, The police right there. I mean, you can take 20 steps and there was the police. They had took, see the area that Move was in, what they call like Drexel, just like Temple University. They gobbling up all the land here, right? So they was taking all that land and they didn't want Move there. That's the main reason that Rizzo was attacking the Move organization. Not only because he didn't like them, it's because the Drexel University was pushing it. You know what I mean? They was pushing that they wanted them out of the area, right? And so all those are like dormitories, apartment houses. They frat houses, you know, the fraternity houses. Right. They emptied all those out and nothing but cops was in them. Sandbags. I mean, it was just like that. Sandbags, the whole bit. A mounted machine gun, the whole thing. You know what I mean? I'm not exaggerating because this is the truth.
All trained on the Move here?
All trained on these two houses.
Where Move
yeah. All around them. In back of them, on the side of them, in front of them, on the side of them, the whole bit. You know, the whole thing.
Now, this was 1978.
1970, just before. This is somewhere around maybe in May, all the way up to August.
And you're saying now, and people would bring food?
Every day. See, once they barricaded it, right, they said nobody could come in. And then one day, thousands of people got together. Even Falaka Fatah was out there.
They're trying to starve them.
They trying to starve them. See, at first, everybody was taking them stuff freely. Right? Because the negotiation was going on. They was getting ready to leave the city and everything. Once that they couldn't get this land, and once their time ran out, and the wants went back on their people, and they wanted them to just give up, they put up barricades, like in a 3-block radius, right? And they start starving them, actually starving them.
Who did go?
And that's when the barricades went up, and they stopped anybody from coming in. And maybe 2-3 days went past, and they was actually starving them, starving the children, starving the people in there. Then the people got fed up, and we marched right through the barricade and gave them the food. And there was so many people, right, they couldn't stop it. They wanted to stop it, but they couldn't stop it. People just got together, thousands of them, and marched right in there and gave them the water, the food, the whole thing. Right?
Now, what happened after that?
Well, what happened after that was that people was freely going in and out for a while. Until Judge DeBoner put out what they classify as a warrant for all of their arrest. So this gave the police what they classify as power to really restrict. And so what they did then was bring in all the police, seemed like to me. And you couldn't get in past the armored vehicles, the trucks, the buses, the horses, the dogs. Then a lot of the community leaders, right, instead of being really forceful then, like we did when we marched through everything, starts telling people to back up, tell them to wait. And then, I mean, a few days after that, it was like August the 8th, when they, 4:30 in the morning or 3:30 in the morning, whenever they did it, they did something just as worse that they did this time. But the difference was, the guy didn't let nobody die at that time. Blew up the houses with guns. They had cherry pickers. You saw a big cherry picker? Yeah. You know, the cherry picker knocked down houses? Right. They actually knocked the house down on top of them. They was in the cellar. Actually, where they used the water cannons, man, they just shot water in. It's a wonder. No, it's not a wonder. I know why they didn't. Nothing happened.
If they succeeded doing it that way in 78, you say, why couldn't that have been done again this time rather than to drop a bomb?
Well, they did all the same thing. The only difference is they dropped the bomb too.
Why was it necessary, you think, to drop the bomb?
In 78?
No, they ain't dropped no bomb. They threw hand grenades in there. They actually shot so much bullets in there. They actually tore down trees, like the tree that James Ramp, the officer that was shot, far as we concerned, by the police. They actually tore down this tree, what was left of it, because the bullets shot down the tree. They just tore the rest of it down because, far as we concerned, to hide the evidence. Because see, if you saw the Move house, they tore down the top of the house. They shot water into the house. There was so much water in the house that it was coming out of the cellar, right? They actually tore down the house, had bulldozers and cherry pickers, just tore down the house. And the cellar was in a position that if it was impossible for someone to shoot, if they never shot nothing. They said that. But it would have showed you that it was totally impossible for someone to shoot out of a cellar up into the air, into some kind of 45-degree, like for instance, they said the moose shot out of this, stuck their hands out of the cellar, went around the corner and shot ramp. That's how it had to be. That's how it had to be. They had to stick their arms out of the joint with a long rifle, go around the corner and shoot ramp, right? So to make sure that didn't come up in court, what they did was tore down the house completely to the ground, tore all the trees down and everything around it, so there was no evidence to prove that it was impossible to do that.
And then they charge the MOVE people for killing
All of them.
police officers.
All of them. Every last one of them was charged with murder of Officer Ramp. And I mean, it would show, historically, it probably going to show sometime in the future that Officer Ramp, you know, was killed by the police. In crossfire. I mean, they were shooting so much that if you got anywhere near the way, you were shot. Because they were shooting this way, that way, this way, that way. They were shooting all in the rules, all down. I mean, they had every kind of weapon you can name. See, in Philadelphia, we got tanks here.
After the shootout.
The shoot in.
After the shoot-in, it wasn't a shootout.
No, it wasn't.
Derridge, Africa, was beaten on national television. What happened? What happened?